Hey, it's so great to go right after Representative Massey. I've always been a big fan of his. Organic Consumers Association has supported both of his bills, the Prime Act and the raw milk bill, the fresh milk bill, as he calls it, the Interstate Milk Freedom Act. Um, his wife's quip about the lactose lobby being so intolerant was hilarious. Um, yeah, so that's the right direction to go with the Farm Bill, and I really do hope, and we really will work hard. We should all do exactly what Congressman Massey asked us to do. Make quick phone calls, three quick phone calls to your senators, two senators, and your one representative, just asking them to check out these bills, consider sponsoring them, and supporting their inclusion in the Farm Bill. Um, there are good things that happen in the Farm Bill. I do not agree with Congressman Massey about food stamps necessarily. Um, maybe we should encourage people. We actually there are good programs that encourage people to buy fresh produce and to buy local and direct from their farmers at farmers markets. There are food stamp programs that give you double dollars at the farmers market, and I see this happening in my local community here in Maryland. The farmers get a lot of tokens and tickets from food stamp purchasers, and they get double or triple the money that they would spend at the grocery store if they buy produce at the farmers market. So I think that's the way to encourage healthy consumption through um, through food stamps. I wouldn't like to see, people were talking about crazy things during COVID, like, hey, why don't you make food stamps conditional on X? So that's probably not the way to go. We might say, yeah, everybody should buy organic if they're on food stamps, but then somebody else will say everybody should be vaccinated and have a tracker if they're on food stamps. So you just never know what could happen. And so far, food stamps has always been equivalent to cash. And there have just been incentive programs. There haven't been programs that have tried to limit what people can buy with food stamps. And it's probably for the best. My favorite organization that does farm bill advocacy is the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition. And through 2019, I was 100% a climate activist. I was going around Capitol Hill with the Sunrise Movement and really encouraged and excited about the Green New Deal. We even organized a coalition of farmers and ranchers for the Green New Deal. And I'm proud of that work. I don't disown it, but I am a lot more careful now. I think about advocating for what sort of climate solutions might happen. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Green New Deal, and I challenge anyone who believes that there is to read it. It was a totally wide open document that was very aspirational and had a lot of good ideas in it, and it wasn't very prescriptive at all. So I don't know where people got the idea that you know, that beef would be banned under the Green New Deal. There are all sorts of silly bits of misinformation that came out about the Green New Deal. But I think that we have to be real specific now when we're talking to Congress. We can't have wide open documents like the Green New Deal that leave it to people's imaginations about what should happen. We need to have real specific programs. And luckily, there are good ones in the Farm Bill. The Conservation Stewardship Program rewards farmers for the ecosystem services that are achieved through regenerative organic agriculture practices. I know this program works because I know farmers who are, excellent, superb regenerative organic practitioners that score extremely high. And one of the cool things about the conservation stewardship program is that it doesn't have any like provision for scientifically measuring or getting in on the farm and making farmers do tons of paperwork. It's probably easier to get payments through the conservation stewardship program than it is to get certified organic. And so anybody who's already getting certified organic might as well apply for the conservation stewardship program. The trouble has always been that like three-quarters of farmers who would qualify for it are left out of the program. A lot of Almost all farm bill programs get administered by the state level. at the state level. So we have to do advocacy at the state level as well as the federal level. Once there's a good program, you have to find out how your state is administering it and make sure that your state is making sure that there's access to everybody who qualifies. But again, the big limiter to the Conservation Stewardship Act, as good as it is as a program, is that Congress just never appropriated enough money into it to make a difference. The Conservation Stewardship Program is associated with land set aside, letting land be fallow so that it can rest and recover. And when one great innovation, I mean, that's not the most of it. Most of it is for regenerative organic agriculture practices on working lands. But the land recovery, set asiding land to recover, letting land go fallow was part of it. But a really good innovation that was advocated for by the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition was to allow grazing on cropland that was set aside to recover. And that makes that, and also planting trees. So it makes the program much, much better. We do really tear up agricultural land, and setting it aside to be covered with weeds, as a couple of our speakers have talked about, is not the worst idea. Um, but it is even better if you're taking that land and instead of plowing it again and covering it in chemicals and fertilizers, if you're regenerating it by putting in a permanent pasture and allowing animals to graze, or creating an orchard or another type of regenerative agroforestry system. You can't harvest it while you're in the program if you're in the land set aside portion of it. But a lot of these programs get a bad rap. The only issue I have now, I think, is that I am more concerned about programs being yanked at opportune times or misused by the federal government. I'm a lot more sensitive to that now than I was prior to COVID. The Commodity Credit Corporation that I spoke about in my initial talk at the beginning of this program today was initially created so that we could have a grain reserve and buy grain from farmers when they couldn't get a fair price in the market. That program doesn't exist anymore. It hasn't existed for a couple generations now. But the Commodity Credit Corporation still exists. And it's basically has the potential to be an enormous slush fund that would allow Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack or any other leader of the USDA to basically start printing money out of the USDA. It's that crazy. Like, people have talked about there being the capacity for $6 billion a year, even more, to just be, at the whim of the director of the US Department of Agriculture. And that's a little scary. Nobody had done that prior to the Trump administration. And during the Trump administration, they decided to use the Commodity Credit Corporation to compensate farmers for losses during trade disputes. I'm not saying that's bad. Personally, I think that any program that keeps independent family farmers on the land is okay. We have to worry when the programs are used to pick winners and losers, and when programs are yanked at inopportune times, and the reliance on the program when it's taken away causes farmers to lose their land. And that's a big risk. I have always, whenever I've done farm bill advocacy, and I've been working at Organic Consumers Association on this since 2005, so I've been through several farm bill cycles now. It comes up every 5 years. 2023 is the year that the farm bill expires. They don't normally pass a new one the same year, but it means they're going to be working hard on it starting this year. And the Farm Bill subsidy programs have always been something that I railed against. The very first meetings that I went to, I said, why are we subsidizing the worst type of GMO pesticide agriculture? And, people would turn and look at me like I had just sprouted an extra devilish head. It was just like a non-starter. You weren't allowed to talk about subsidies, even with like progressive offices that loved regenerative organic agriculture. Nobody would touch the subsidy issue. There were only a few offices, usually the Libertarian Republicans and libertarian Republican think tanks like Cato Institute. And I do worry that one of these days, this issue that didn't really get much attention, that I always thought it would be a good idea, yank those subsidies. Don't subsidize the bad forms of agriculture. But it's going to happen when it's not good. I mean, it's having independent family farms, even if they're rich and big, it's probably better than Bill Gates or whoever else, whatever other billionaires and corporations or Chinese conglomerates might come in to take over that farmland. Or as we saw from James Corbett's talk, you know we might just be in a serious great reset moment where the whole idea of the corporations is to crash agriculture as we know it. Agriculture as we know it is definitely not perfect. It's got so many problems, but the answer is not to destroy agriculture, period. And we might be in this situation where the idea is to destroy agriculture by any means necessary, including using our own arguments against us. We don't like a particular type of farming, and therefore we're going to punish the farmers for it. I mean, these types of things could happen, and there's never been a farm bill like that. But I am concerned, even as much as I hate nitrogen pollution, I hate pesticide pollution, I hate pollution from industry that got farmland soaked with PFAs, these persistent chemicals that just, they accumulate in meat and milk. It's really hard not to grow vegetables or any type of product on the farm without having some type of environmental contamination. DDT never went away. We don't use it anymore, but the contamination is still there. And I am concerned that the confluence of support, honest, good support for climate mitigation, which is a good idea, that these things will be used against us. And we will have scenarios like we've seen in other countries where all of a sudden the subsidies are yanked or they're penalizing the farmer for the pollution that the corporations are responsible for and benefited from. The farmer never benefited from buying GMO seeds, buying synthetic fertilizer, buying pesticides. And I do worry that we may be entering, or we're already in a cycle where the the hammer is going to come down hard for real problems on the people who are the least responsible and have the most to lose. So for me, now any program that keeps independent family farmers on the land is a good program. And we can't be yanking programs willy-nilly just because they don't support the type of agriculture that we like. We have to be a little bit more clear about the outcomes that we want. And especially, we need programs that strengthen local food systems. So, Congressman Massey's Prime Act and his fresh milk bill are great. There is a small program that it would be great to get more funding for. It's called the Value Added Producer Grant. And funding actually has gone down since 2000 when they first created this program. It's down to only $17.5 million dollars a year to create processing options for farmers. Ownership. This is what the farmers who gained a little political power during World War II wanted. They wanted to own their own grain elevators and cash their receipts for their grain in their own banks. Now, the Farm Bill doesn't cover banking, despite the Commodity Credit Corporation being a big slush fund that allows the USDA secretary to print money. We still have, it, the farmers can't have all of their economic troubles solved by the Farm Bill. But this is actually a very good program because if we give farmers ownership over processing in their locality, then that cuts out the middleman. It allows the farmer to market direct to consumers. Of course, we love raw milk because raw milk goes direct to the consumer, and it's best that way, as we heard Abby Rockefeller tell us today. So, I buy raw milk, obviously for health, but I would probably buy it even if I did think it wasn't, more nutritious than processed milk. I'd probably buy it just because I would know that every single dollar I spent on that milk was going straight to the farmer and wasn't going through a gigantic corporation that the farmer had to sell the milk through. So, we just got to do whatever we can to support family farmers now and keep agriculture going. I can't believe I'm talking like this. Um, I've always been so, climate focused, environmentally focused, human health focused, but I think we're at a point where we have to save agriculture. Of course, that shouldn't make us do things that don't match our values either, but we should be real clear about how we're going to advocate and how that might impact independent family farms. I think that's all I've got for you. I think the next speaker is going to talk about local solutions. And honestly, local solutions are where it's at. We should be pooling our own resources, as many of the speakers have talked about, our own resources to ensure our own supply chain at the local level for our communities, like Zen talked about. Um, that's really where it's at. We do need to pay attention to the Farm Bill. It's it's theoretically a huge opportunity, but it's definitely, no matter what, a huge threat. And we have to know what's going on at the federal level with the Farm Bill, or else it's impossible to understand the food system that we're living in.
Thank you. Alexis, you've filled in a lot of blanks there. I just want to reiterate what you were referring to and what Tom Massey was referring to, which is that if you grow your own animal to sell, you have to put it through a butcher shop that is approved by government. And you are not allowed to butcher that animal on your own property and sell it to somebody else, even if they are your next door neighbor, under
Yeah.
the rules that exist now. So we've got these crazy rules that are, again, are intended to centralize the production of food and to squeeze the profits so that it's the middleman and the large industries that are gaining the profits rather than the individual farmers.